Ambassador Tal stood before the Galactic Council and felt his hope dying. The great chamber was filled with representatives from 100 different species. They sat in floating chairs that circled the speaking platform like rings around a planet. Their eyes watched him with what looked like sympathy. But Tal knew that sympathy would not save his people. He was a Venari, a tall insectoid creature with 4 arms and antennae that could sense the emotions of others. Right now, those antennae told him something terrible. The council felt sorry for the Venari. They truly did. But they were not going to help. Tal had shown them the images. Burning cities. Ships falling from the sky. Children running through streets filled with smoke and screaming. The Krath Dominion had come to the Venice system 3 months ago. They had already taken 12 colony worlds. They consumed everything. They took the people and used their bodies to grow more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. The Krath were not conquerors. They were a plague. The council speaker, a being made of floating crystal shards, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "We understand your pain, Ambassador Tal. The council condemns the actions of the Krath's Dominion. We will send strong words of protest. We will stop trading with them." Strong words. Tal wanted to laugh. He wanted to scream. The Krath did not care about words. They did not need trade. They took what they wanted. "Vena Prime will fall in 3 weeks, Tal said. His voice was steady even though his hearts were breaking. 40 million of my people live there? 40 million lives. And you offer us words? The chamber was silent. No one would meet his eyes. Tal walked out of the chamber. He did not look back. There was no point. The galaxy had made its choice. The Venari would die alone. He was standing on a balcony overlooking the moon city of Elris when someone approached him. Tal turned to see Elder Counselor Miras of the Silken Accord. Miras was ancient, his body wrapped in flowing robes that hid most of his form. His species was known for knowledge and secrets. "The council will not help you," Miras said. It was not a question. Cole replied, "They will not." Miras was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very soft. "There is one option you have not considered. One species that might help you?" Tal felt a small spark of hope. "Who? Tell me. I will go to them myself." "They're called humans," Miras said. "They come from a small planet called Earth. They have been traveling among the stars for only 200 years. A very young species." Tal had heard the name before. Whispers in dark corners. Stories that seemed too strange to believe. "I have heard of them, but I thought they were dangerous." Miras made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Dangerous? Yes, that is one word for them. The council asked them not to join us. We were afraid of what they might do. They are violent in ways we cannot understand. They fight for reasons that make no sense. They feel no fear as we know it. Then why would I go to them for help?" Miras turned to face Tal directly. His old eyes were serious. "Because 7 years ago, the Krath attacked a human station called Kepler. The Krath sent 50 ships. The humans had only 8. By every calculation, the humans should have died. Instead, the Krath fled. It was the first time in recorded history that the Krath retreated from a battle." Tal felt his antennae twitch with shock. "That is not possible. I saw the records myself," Miras said. "The humans did not just fight. They did things the Krath could not understand. They flew their ships into the enemy. They detonated weapons while still inside them. They laughed while they were dying. The Krath had never seen anything like it. They ran because they did not know how to fight something that was not afraid to die." Tal thought about this. His people were peaceful. They had never been warriors. They solved problems with words and agreements. The idea of seeking help from a species known for violence went against everything the Venari believed, but 40 million of his people were about to die. "Where do I find them?" Tal asked. Miras gave him the coordinates. As Tal took them, the old counselor put a hand on his arm. "Be careful, Ambassador. The humans are not evil. They can be kind. They can be generous. But there is something broken inside them. Something that makes them capable of terrible things. When you look into their eyes, you will see it. A darkness. A willingness to do whatever is necessary. Tal nodded slowly. I understand. No, Mira said. You do not. But you will. 3 days later, Tal's ship left Elris and set course for human space. As the stars stretched into lines around him, he thought about what he was doing. He was going to ask monsters for help. He was going to invite the most feared species in the galaxy to his homeworld. He thought about his daughter on Vena Prime. She was 12 years old. She liked to paint pictures of flowers and sing songs about the stars. In 3 weeks, the Krath would take her. They would use her body to grow weapons. Tal closed his eyes. He made his choice. Whatever the humans were, whatever darkness lived inside them, he would accept it. He would accept anything. Because when you have no other options, you do not get to be afraid of the answer. You just pray that the monsters you summon are willing to fight for you. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. Tal was going to meet the humans. And he had no idea that this decision would change the entire galaxy forever. Tal expected warships. He expected to be stopped at the border of human space by weapons pointed at his hull. He expected interrogation, threats, demands to know why a Venari was entering their territory instead. He got a bored voice on the communication system asking for his visitor credentials. I am Ambassador Tal of the Venari people, he said carefully. I wish to speak with your leaders about a matter of great importance. There was a pause. Then the voice said, Sure, hold on. Let me transfer you to immigration. Migration. Like he was visiting a resort planet. Tal did not know what to think. After filling out forms that asked strange questions about allergies and food preferences, Tal was given permission to land on a human colony world called New. Busan, his ship descended through. White clouds, and he got his first look at a human city. It was chaos. The city sprawled across green hills and along a blue coastline. Buildings of different sizes and colors stood next to each other with no pattern Tal could see. Flying vehicles moved in every direction. And everywhere there were humans. They walked in groups, talking loudly. They sat in outdoor spaces eating food and laughing. Children ran through the streets playing games, and Tal saw 2 of them pretending to fight each other with sticks. Mock combat. The children were practicing war as a game. A human official met Tal at the landing area. She was a young female with short dark hair and a smile that seemed too big for her face. Welcome to New Busan, Ambassador. I'm Jimin. I'll be your guide. Is this your first time on a human world? Yes, Tal said carefully. It is very loud, Jimin laughed. Humans laughed often, Tal was learning. Yeah, we get that a lot. Don't worry, you get used to it. Come on, General Park is waiting for you. They traveled through the city in a ground vehicle. Tal watched the humans through the window. He saw a group of them lifting heavy objects and carrying them into a building. Another group was sitting in a circle, all of them yelling at each other, but they did not seem angry. They were yelling and smiling at the same time. What are they doing? Tal asked, pointing at the yelling group. Oh, that's a debate club, Jimin said. They argue about stuff for fun. Fun? Yeah. Humans like arguing. It's how we figure things out. Tal did not understand. But then, he was beginning to realize he might not understand anything about humans. General Yuna Park was waiting for him in a simple room with windows. Overlooking the ocean, she was a human female of middle age, with gray in her dark hair and eyes that seemed to see everything. She stood when Tal entered and offered her hand in the human greeting gesture. Tal had read about this. He took her hand and shook it. Her grip was firm. Ambassador Tal, Yuna said. Please, sit. Tell me why you have come. There was another human in the room. A younger male who leaned against the wall with his arms crossed. He had a relaxed smile on his face, but his eyes were sharp. Yuna introduced him as Captain Ji-hoon Kong. Tal sat and began to speak. He told them everything. The Krath invasion. The dying colonies. The Council's refusal to help. The 40 million people on Vena Prime who would be harvested in less than 3 weeks. Yuna listened without interrupting. Her face showed nothing. Ji-hoon's smile slowly faded as Tal spoke, replaced by something harder. when Tal finished. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Yuna asked one question. How many of your people are still alive on Vena Prime?
38 million, Tal said. We have begun evacuation, but our ships are too few. We can save perhaps 2 million before the Krath arrive. Yuna looked at Jihoon. Something passed between them. A communication without words. Jihoon's smile returned, but it was different now. Sharper, more dangerous. This will not be an official military operation, Yuna said slowly. Our government would never approve direct involvement in another species war. The politicians are afraid of making enemies. Tal felt his hope crumbling. Then you cannot help us. I did not say that. Yuna leaned forward. Our government will not send an army. But humans do not need their government's permission to help people who are dying. I will put out a call for volunteers. Anyone who wants to fight can join us. It will be their choice. You think people will volunteer? To fight the Krath? To probably die? Jihoon spoke for the first time. His voice was calm and friendly, like he was discussing plans for dinner. Ambassador, you don't know humans very well yet. We have a saying, tell a human something is impossible, and they'll break their backs trying to prove you wrong. The Kraths are scary. But humans don't like being scared. It makes us angry. Yuna nodded. Give me 1 week. 1 week later, Tal received the numbers. He read them 3 times because he was sure there was a mistake. 12,000 humans had volunteered. Soldiers, yes, but also engineers, doctors, farmers, and teachers. 12,000 people who were willing to travel across the galaxy to fight a war that was not theirs. For a species they had never met, Tal found Yuna in the military headquarters. I do not understand, he said. Why would so many of your people risk their lives for us? We have nothing to offer you. No trade, no alliance, no payment. Why? Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something that Tal would remember for the rest of his life. Because you asked. Tal's antennae trembled. That is all? We asked, so you will help us die? No, Yuna said. You asked, so we will help you live. There is a difference. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, Tal could see human ships being loaded with supplies. Thousands of humans were preparing to go to war. Ambassador, let me explain something about my species. We are not the strongest race in the galaxy. We are not the smartest. Our ships are not the fastest, and our weapons are not the most powerful. But we have one thing that sets us apart from everyone else. What is that? Yuna turned to face him. In her eyes, Tal saw the darkness that Miras had warned him about. But he also saw something else. Something that burned like a star. We never know when to quit, Yuna said. Tell us a fight is hopeless, and we will fight anyway. Tell us we cannot win, and we will find a way. We are not good at giving up. It is maybe our greatest weakness and our greatest strength. She put a hand on Tal's shoulder. Your people are going to live, Ambassador. I promise you that. The Krath think they know what fear is, but they have never met us. And when we are done with them, they will learn. For the first time in months, Ambassador Tal felt hope, and also for the first time. He understood why the galaxy was afraid of humans. The human fleet arrived at Vena Prime without warning. One moment, the sky was empty. The next moment, it was filled with ships. But they were not the gleaming warships the Venari had expected. They were old cargo vessels, converted transports, and civilian craft that looked like they might fall apart at any moment. The Venari watched from their cities as the ships descended. Fear and hope mixed in their hearts. These were the humans, the monsters, the saviors. General Unipark was the first to step onto Venar soil. She looked around at the purple grass and the twin suns in the sky. Then she took a deep breath and smiled. Beautiful planet, she said. Let's make sure it stays that way. Behind her, 12,000 humans began to unload. They moved with purpose and energy. They talked loudly to each other. Some of them were singing songs that the Venari did not understand. It was not what Tal had expected from an army preparing for war. The Venari. Military council met with the human leaders in the capital city. The Venari generals were nervous. They had seen the numbers. The Krath were sending 200 ships and over 1 million soldiers. The humans had brought only 40 ships and 12,000 fighters. "This is suicide," said General Hugh, the oldest of the Venari commanders. "We should evacuate as many people as we can. Fighting is pointless." Yuna shook her head slowly. "With respect, General, evacuation is surrender. And surrender against the Krath is death. They will chase your ships. They will catch them. And then they will harvest everyone aboard. Then what do you suggest? We cannot fight them with these numbers." Captain Jihoon Kong spread a map of the planet on the table. He pointed to the mountain regions in the north. "We don't fight them in open space. We let them land. We let them think they've won. And then we make this planet a nightmare for them." The Venari generals exchanged confused looks. "Let the enemy land." That was madness, but Yuna was nodding. "The Krath have never faced a ground war against humans. They don't know what we can do when we dig in. They don't know about guerrilla tactics. They don't know about improvised weapons. And most importantly, they don't know about hope." Outside the meeting room, the humans were already working. They did not wait for permission or orders. They simply started doing things. A young Venari named Kiris watched in confusion as a group of humans began digging holes in the ground near her home. She approached carefully, her antennae twitching with curiosity and fear. One of the humans noticed her. He was young, with a friendly face and quick hands. He stopped digging and smiled at her. "Hi there. I'm Tay. What's your name?" "Kiris," she said quietly. "What are you doing?" "Building tunnels," Tay said. "Your planet has soft soil. Good for digging. Bad for tanks? Tanks? Big machines. The Krath will bring them. But machines don't work well in tunnels." Tay winked at her. "And tunnels are where the fun happens." Kiris did not understand what was fun about tunnels, but she watched as the humans kept working. They dug and built and shaped the land around them. They set up strange devices that beeped and flashed. They taught Venari workers how to make bombs from common chemicals. But the strangest thing the humans did was plant gardens in the middle of a war zone. With enemies coming to kill them all, the humans planted seeds and watered them carefully. Kiris asked Tay why. Tay stopped what he was doing and looked at the small green plants pushing up through the purple soil. "Because," he said softly, "we're planning to be here long enough to eat what we grow. The Krath think they're coming to end your world. We're showing them that we believe in tomorrow. That's how you beat fear. You plant something and trust that you'll be alive to watch it grow." Kiris thought about this for a long time. She had been afraid every day since the Krath invasion began. Afraid to sleep, afraid to hope. But watching the humans work, watching them sing and laugh and plant gardens, she felt something changing inside her. They were not acting like people who expected to die. They were acting like people who expected to win. At night, the humans gathered around fires and told stories. They invited the Venari to join them. At first, the Venar were hesitant, but slowly they came closer. They listened to human tales of heroes and monsters, of battles won against impossible odds, of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Yuna told the story of a human city called Stalingrad, where her ancestors had fought against an enemy that outnumbered them greatly. They did not give up, she said, her face lit by the firelight. They fought for every street, every building, every room. The enemy could not understand why. They had won on paper. But paper means nothing when people refuse to accept defeat. The Venari listened, and something began to grow in them. Something they had not felt in a long time. Anger. They were angry at the Krath. Angry at the council for abandoning them. Angry at themselves for being ready to give up. The humans had brought more than weapons and soldiers. They had brought a different way of thinking. A belief that survival was not just about running away. It was about standing up and fighting back. General Huck came to Yuna on the third night. His old body was tired, but his eyes were brighter than they had been in months. "I have been a soldier for 60 years, he said. I thought I understood war. I thought I knew what courage looked like. But watching your people, they are not normal. They smile at death. They make jokes while building bombs. How do you live like this? Yuna considered the question. We are afraid, she said honestly. Every one of us. Fear is natural. But we have learned that fear is just a feeling. It does not control us unless we let it. The Krath use fear as a weapon. They expect their enemies to break and run. But when the enemy doesn't run, when they stand and fight, the Krath don't know what to do. She put a hand on the old general's shoulder. Your people have forgotten how to be angry, how to fight. We are here to remind you. And when the Krath arrive, they will not find frightened prey waiting to be harvested. They will find a planet of warriors who have nothing left to lose. General Huck nodded slowly. Then he did something that surprised Yuna. He laughed. It was a rusty sound, like something that had not been used in a long time. But it was real, and let us teach them, he said. Let us show them what happens when prey becomes predator. Across Venaprime, the humans and Venari worked side by side. They dug tunnels. They planted bombs. They built defenses. They prepared for war. And they waited for the storm. The Krath fleet entered the Vena system like a cloud of locusts. 200 bioships, each one grown from the genetic material of conquered species, each one a living nightmare. On the bridge of the largest ship, the Krath Overmind observed the planet below. It was ancient and vast, a creature that had consumed the memories of 1,000,000 victims. It could feel the fear of the beings on the surface. Fear was delicious. Fear was power, but there was something else, something the Overmind did not expect. Among the fear, there were minds that felt different, harder, brighter. The Overmind searched for the source of this strangeness and found them. Humans, the Overmind had studied reports about this. Species, young, primitive, dangerous, in unpredictable ways. But surely no match for the Krath Dominion. Surely no threat to a fleet of this size. The Overmind gave the order to attack. On the surface, the humans watched the sky darken with enemy ships. General Unipark stood on a hill overlooking the main battlefield. Beside her, Jihoon Kong was checking his weapons one last time. They're coming, Jihoon said quietly. Yes, they are, Yuna replied. She raised her communication device. All units, this is General Park. The enemy is here. You know what to do. Make them remember us. The Krath ships descended through the atmosphere. They expected easy targets. They expected fleeing civilians and broken defenses. What they found was silence. Empty cities. Empty roads. Empty fields. The first wave of Krath soldiers landed near the capital. They spread out in perfect formation, their bioweapons ready. But there was nothing to shoot at. The planet seemed abandoned. Then the ground exploded. Mines buried under the soft purple soil detonated in a chain reaction. Hundreds of Krath soldiers were thrown into the air. Before they could recover, gunfire erupted from hidden positions. Human snipers, camouflaged in the hills, began taking down Krath commanders with terrifying accuracy. The Krath tried to regroup, but more explosions followed. The tunnels the humans had dug became death traps. Krath squads would enter underground passages and never come out. Others found themselves surrounded by enemies who appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly in the sky. The battle was even stranger. Human pilots flew their small ships directly at the massive bio-vessels. Krath weapons officers laughed at first. What could tiny fighters do against living ships the size of mountains? Then the human ships crashed into the bio-ships' organic hulls. They broke through the skin and detonated their weapons from inside. One Krath vessel after another began to fall from the sky. Destroyed from within, the Overmind felt something it had not experienced in centuries. Confusion. These humans were killing themselves to kill. Krath. They were trading one life for 100 enemy lives. It made no sense. No species did this. No rational creature would accept such losses. But humans were not rational. not in the way the Krath understood. On the ground, Tay the medic ran through a battlefield carrying wounded Venari on his back. Explosions surrounded him. Krath soldiers fired at him. But he kept running, kept saving lives, kept smiling. A Venari child had been trapped under rubble. Tay dug with his bare hands until his fingers bled. He pulled her free, just as a Krath attack destroyed the building behind him.
Go,
He told the child's mother, "Get to the tunnels. I'll cover you." He turned to face the advancing Krath. He was one human against 20 enemies. He had one weapon and no chance of survival. He laughed and opened fire. Tay did not survive that battle, but the mother and child did, and they would tell the story of the human who died smiling for the rest of their lives. Meanwhile, Captain Ji-hoon Kong led his strike team toward the Krath flagship. They had stolen a small transport vessel and were flying directly into the heart of the enemy fleet. "This is crazy," said Minji Lee, his second in command. She was young, barely 25, but she had the steady hands of a surgeon and the eyes of a killer. "We're going to die," probably Ji-hoon agreed. "But we're going to do something fun first." The team landed inside the flagship through a damaged section of hull. They moved quickly through the organic corridors, fighting through waves of Krath defenders. Human and Venari soldiers fought side by side, covering each other, dying for each other. They reached the command center. The Overmind was waiting. The creature was massive, filling most of the room. Its body pulsed with the stolen memories of countless species. When it saw Ji-hoon, it spoke directly into his mind. "You cannot win. You are small. You are weak. I have consumed civilizations older than your species. Surrender, and I will make your death quick." Ji-hoon felt the pressure in his head. The Overmind was trying to project fear into him. Images of death, of pain, of his loved ones being harvested. He pushed back, not with power, but with something else. A memory. The smell of his mother's cooking. The sound of his sister's laughter. The feeling of sunlight on his face on a warm afternoon. "You want to know what scares me?" Ji-hoon said out loud. "Missing my sister's wedding. Disappointing my parents. Dying before I finish reading my favorite book series? You're just a big, ugly meat thing that talks too much." The Overmind recoiled. It did not understand. No species had ever resisted its mental attacks with mundane thoughts, with small, personal memories, with love. Ji-hoon raised his hand. In it was a detonator. Throughout the flagship, his team had planted charges in every critical system. "My people have a saying," he said. "It's better to burn out than fade away." He pressed the button. So-min Choi was waiting in a rescue ship nearby. She saw the flagship begin to explode from the inside. Her hands moved faster than thought, diving toward the rupturing vessel. She had seconds, maybe less. Her ship punched through a wall of fire and debris. She spotted Ji-hoon and the surviving members of his team running for an airlock. She brought her ship in close, screaming at them to jump. Ji-hoon was the last one aboard. He was bleeding and burned, but he was alive. He looked at So-min with that crazy smile of his. "Cutting it a bit close," he said. "Shut up and sit down," So-min replied. "We're not done yet." Behind them, the Krath flagship exploded in a ball of fire that could be seen from the planet's surface. The Venari on the ground watched it burn and felt something they had forgotten. Hope. Without the Overmind, the Krath fleet fell into chaos. They had always relied on the creature's commands. Without it, they did not know how to fight. They did not know how to think. Unipark gave the order for the final push. Human and Venari soldiers rose from their hiding places and attacked. The Krath, already broken and confused, began to retreat. For the first time in their history, the Krath Dominion fled from a planet they had tried to conquer. The Battle of Vena Prime was over. The humans had won, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Vena Prime. The purple grass was growing tall again. The gardens the humans had planted were producing food. Children played in the streets of rebuilt cities, and across the galaxy, everything had changed. The Krath Dominion did not collapse overnight. But without their overmind, without their myth of being unbeatable, they had become something less. Other species began to fight back. Worlds that had surrendered now resisted. The Krath, for the first time in their long history, knew what it felt like to be hunted instead of being the hunter. Ambassador Tal stood once again before the Galactic Council. But this time, he did not come to beg. He came to speak truth. The chamber was fuller than it had been a year ago. Representatives from species that had never attended before had come to hear what the Venery ambassador had to say. Word had spread across the galaxy about what had happened. About the humans, Tal looked around at the faces watching him. Some were curious, some were afraid, some were hopeful. He took a deep breath and began to speak. 1 year ago, I stood in this place and asked for help. I told you that my people were dying. I told you that the Krath were coming to destroy everything we had built. And you, the great Galactic Council, offered me words. Sanctions, sympathy, nothing that would save a single life. The chamber was silent. Many of the representatives looked uncomfortable. I left this place with no hope. I thought my people would die. I thought I would watch everyone I loved be taken by monsters. But then I learned about another species. A species you had rejected from this council because you were afraid of them. A species you called violent, unpredictable, and dangerous.
Owl paused.
You were right about all of those things. Humans are violent. They are unpredictable. They are dangerous. But you missed the most important truth about them. He looked toward the gallery where Yuna Park sat with Ji-Hoon Kong and So-Min Choi. They were scarred from the battle. Yuna walked with a limp now. Ji-Hoon's left arm was artificial, replacing the one he had lost. Salman had burn marks across her neck and shoulder, but they were alive. They were unbroken. Humans are not terrible because they love violence, Tal said. They are terrible because they only use violence to protect something greater. They do not fight for territory. They do not fight for resources. They do not fight to make themselves powerful. They fight for each other. They fight for people they have never met. They fight for ideas that have no physical form. He thought about Tay, the young medic who had died saving a Venari mother and child. Tay had been buried on Vena Prime. The Venari had built a statue of him in the capital. Children left flowers at its base every day. I watched humans give their lives for my people. Not because they had to. Not because they were ordered to. Because they chose to. They looked at strangers who were suffering and decided that suffering was worth dying to stop. Tal's voice grew stronger. The Krath ruled through fear. They made the galaxy believe that resistance was impossible. But humans do not believe in impossible. You tell them something cannot be done, and they will break themselves trying to prove you wrong. You show them a wall, and they will find a way through it, over it, or around it. He pointed at the council speaker. You were afraid of humans, and perhaps you should be, but not for the reasons you believed. Humans are not a threat to peaceful species. They are a threat to anyone who thinks they can hurt the innocent without consequence. They are a threat to empires built on fear. They are a threat to those who believe that power makes them untouchable. The council's speaker's crystal form flickered. What are you suggesting, Ambassador? I am not suggesting anything. I am telling you what is going to happen. The humans have decided to help other species resist the Krath. They are not asking for permission. They are not waiting for approval. They are simply doing it. Because that is who they are. Tal turned to face the full assembly. You can join them. You can offer your own ships and soldiers to stand beside them. Or you can stay here in your comfortable chambers and watch while humans reshape the galaxy. The choice is yours, but I know which choice I have made. He walked to the gallery and stood beside Yuna. She looked at him and gave a small nod of respect. The council debated for 7 hours. In the end, the vote was almost unanimous. Humanity was invited to join the Galactic Accord. A new alliance was formed to resist the Krath and any other species that would prey on the weak. Later that night, Tal found Yuna standing on a balcony overlooking the city of Elris. The moon's surface was covered in lights. Millions of beings lived there. going about their lives unaware of how close they had come to sharing the Venari's fate. "Thank you," Tal said quietly. "For everything," Una shook her head. "You don't need to thank us. We did what anyone should do. But no one else did. Only humans." Una was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Do you know why we are like this? Why we cannot look away from suffering?" "No. I have tried to understand it, but I cannot." Una looked up at the stars. "On our world long ago, there were terrible wars. Millions of humans killed each other. We learned very slowly and very painfully that the only way to survive was to protect each other. Every human alive today is descended from people who decided that some things are worth dying for." She turned to face Tal. "We are not better than other species. We are not smarter or stronger. We are just very, very stubborn. We have been hurt so many times that we refuse to let others be hurt if we can stop it. It is maybe a sickness, or maybe it is the only thing keeping us sane." Tal thought about this. He thought about the humans who had laughed while fighting, who had sung while they were dying, who had planted gardens in a war zone because they believed in tomorrow. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "the galaxy needed a species like yours, a species that does not know when to give up. A species that answers pain with hope." Una smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. "Maybe, or maybe we're all just crazy." "If that is crazy," Tal said, "then I hope the whole galaxy becomes crazy." Far away on Vena Prime, the sun was rising over the rebuilt capital. In the main square, the statue of Tay the medic stood guard. At its base, a young Venari named Kiris placed a fresh flower. She was older now, stronger, no longer afraid. She looked up at the statue's face. The human artist had captured Tay's smile. The smile he had worn while saving lives. The smile he had worn while dying. "Thank you," Kiris whispered. "I will never forget." Then she turned and walked into the morning light. Around her, humans and Venari worked together, building, planting, living. They had survived the impossible. They had faced the most terrible enemy in the galaxy and won. Not because they were the strongest, not because they had the best weapons or the biggest ships, but because a group of strange, violent, stubborn, beautiful creatures from a small planet called Earth had decided that strangers were worth fighting for. The humans had come as monsters. They stayed as friends, and the galaxy would never be the same.